here doing a video that I really did not plan on doing, but I'm selling a keyboard to a buddy of mine, a Casio XW-P1, and it just didn't feel right if I didn't get a few plugs and endorsements in for this Casio XW-P1 before I sold it. I bought this maybe 3-4 years ago with the intention of using it for gigging, and I did. I used it for about a year with a band I was playing with in Germany, and what I decided was I needed something that had a little more capability beyond that, so I ended up buying a Roland FA06. And after I bought the Roland FA06, I didn't even really pay much attention to the XW-P1. But what I used it for was mostly kind of classic rock gigging, piano sounds, electric piano, organ, very minimal synth stuff. And because what it's not that good at is the synth stuff, or at least classic filter sweeping, wow. I love making that noise, don't I? That type of stuff. So I've had it sitting in the box mostly for like 2.5-3 years now. What I want this video to do is to highlight the people out there who say, I don't have a lot of money, I want to buy something and kind of start getting into doing more automated DAW-less type stuff. And by the way, this thing, if I understood it fully and wanted to do DAW-less, this would be an awesome starting point. But it's very self-contained. There's a lot of stuff on board, just the keyboard alone. Despite the price of only $4.99, and I think it's still selling for that, it does a lot of stuff more than keyboards 2 or 3 times as expensive. And the problem is it's not super user-friendly. So anyway, just had to throw this together real quick before I sell it. And I am drinking, because it's the holiday season, it's the winter season. Actually, winter doesn't start for another couple days, but I'm drinking a Snowblind Doppelbock, a double bock from Star Hill Brewery here on the East Coast here in the United States. Pretty good stuff. Kind of strong too. But anyway, back to the Casio XW-P1, because it, for the price and what it does really well, it rocks. Cheers. So here we are. I wanted to go over the XW-P1, the Casio XW-P1 a little bit before I sell it, because again, I appreciate what they built a lot more than what I used it for. And this is not, unfortunately, for fans of this keyboard out there or somebody considering buying it, a tutorial. There are some pretty good tutorials already on YouTube. Mike Martin, I think he still works for Casio, I'm not sure, has done a lot of really good tutorials for this. I was hoping for something a little bit more than what he did, but he gave it a pretty good shot. And the manual, as I said already, isn't that great, but so let's go over it a little bit, just talk about it, my impression, why I'm selling it, what it doesn't do for me that I need out of a keyboard, and what it does for other folks that I really didn't need. Okay? There's 4 different types of sounds you can get out of it. There's a Solo Synth. There's what they call the Hex Layer Synth. There's a Drawbar Organ, which isn't half bad. And I have to say the Leslie is not horrible, and it's not really good either. That's part of the reason I stopped using this for gigging. I got a better organ setup, so. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit more. And then there are a bunch of PCM, pulse code modulation, basically sample-based sounds, which aren't half bad in some cases. So other cases, they're not anything to write home about. And let's see, you can scroll through them really easily. You can easily switch between octaves. And having had a couple different keyboards where they made that extremely difficult to do, I really have to appreciate it for this. So. Strings. What else? So again, it's PCM based. Unfortunately, the PCM based sounds, the sample based sounds, are not super programmable for like filter control. There are envelopes for affecting the amplitude, how loud it is, and shaping that. But that was one of the reasons that I wasn't really crazy about this. You can't really shape the sampled sound so much. It's got a good selection. There's enough stuff that you can use it. And just to clarify, I'm not a picky person when it comes to this stuff. I've seen people literally create some awesome music with a keyboard like this. So if someone says this is a piece of shit and you can't do anything with it, I'm pretty sure it's the person that is the problem and not necessarily the keyboard. Now, there are certain, true statement, there are certain things I can't do with this that I want to do. It's not nearly as responsive as an analog synth like the Erebus there. But you can still, if you're someone who plays keyboards and you're starting out, you want to experiment and do something that's leaning towards electronic stuff, it's got a lot of great options. That's a sampled synth bass, so you can't really change the resonance or the decay on the envelope. It has some decent choirs that have choir pads and whatever. Drums. A lot of different, and it's got the a lot of different sampled 808 type stuff, electronic drum kits. I need love, love. That's what it made me think of anyway. Phil Collins, when he started to sell out. So again, it's not bad at all. And your controls over here, these assignable knobs, really enhance everything that you're working with for the sounds. It is splittable. You can have 4 different zones to play 4 different types of sounds. In those 4 zones, only one of the zone can be either the Solo Synth, the Hex Layer, or the Drawbar Organ. You can't use any more than just one of these 3 types, and that of course leaves you the other 3 zones are all the sample-based PCM sounds. Which again, you would think it would be a big limitation, and it is a limitation, I just don't think it's a massive one. So, another super cool thing about this, let's find, is a step sequencer. There's a step sequencer on here that's 16 steps. And again, this is something I've only just marginally toyed with, just because I never needed it. Never really cared to figure it out so much. So literally in the last day, I've just kind of dorked around with it, trying to remind myself or remember, how it works, what little I did play with it before. But it's a 16-step sequencer. You can do drums. Right now it's set for drum 1, so we can add drum beats. And then once it's going, you can actually change the value using these levers down here to change the notes that are being played. And let's keep going, except I want that one to be an open hi-hat. You use these 2 little buttons right here to pick the parts. Now a sequence can have up to, 9 parts. And they are sort of predefined. 5 of those parts, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those parts are drum sounds. There's a bass, labeled bass, 2 solos, and then chords. You can actually do chords in one of the tracks. So let's add a bass sound real quick. Okay, so we added, 2 different solo parts. They're all the same note, basically C. But you can change those around later if you want to. And now we're gonna add some chords. Let's see if this works. Oh, is it actually playing that now? Did it record it? There is a way to record that, but obviously that didn't right there. So anyway, there's a lot you can do with it. if you understand it and dive into it. That's, again, another complaint. This seems like it was designed by engineers and they thought of some really cool stuff, but didn't necessarily make it super user-friendly. Programming this thing is kind of, I'm going to say, in the middle. I've experienced worse and I've experienced a lot better. This LED thing here, the display does help a lot, but it's still kind of cryptic in places. So the sequencer's cool. Like I said, you can take a sequence like I just did. You can string 3 or 4 of those together in a larger sequence chain, I guess you could say. And I've never done that. I've never figured out how to do it. Another really cool feature, this is something I really like. It has a phrase sequencer. You can record phrases and you can actually then work those phrases into those sequences as well. So again, watch Mike Martin on the Casio videos. He'll explain that a little better. Okay, it's real easy to record a phrase sequence here. So let's see if we can do this without screwing it up. So play. You can loop it so it will play ad nauseum. Okay, you can also launch that phrase from any key and change the key that it's being played in. It'll transpose it. You can also increase the tempo. You can assign percussion, second or third percussion, or no percussion. None, second now. Third. And then of course you can control the drawbars. So let's hear what it sounds like through a different Leslie effect, which means I need to turn this off first, so... So let's talk quickly about the hex layer again. Now, the interesting thing about the hex layer is that you can control, there are, hence the name, hex layer, 6 layers that you can control on this. Now, each of the layers are just PCM, or sample based, but it gives you some modulation or sculpting abilities here. So let's find something a little different. This is my favorite one, which is of course why they put it in the first slot. You can't do real-time control of the filter on the hex layer, which drives me crazy. I mean, if I'm holding this chord and I change the filter, the tone won't change until I play the next chord. Watch. So you can't do it real time, but at least you can change the cutoff a little bit. Coolest part though is you can do detuning of all 6 layers. Which can get you some pretty cool stuff. Let's find something else that's good. Now let's show you what the 6 layers in this sound is. Number 7 is the master level for all 6. So there you go, you get a feel for that too. And then lastly, again, the Solo Synth. I already explained that a little bit, but I'll give you a few more examples of some of their presets, which I was never that crazy about. You can sync the oscillators, the 2 virtual oscillators on here, which is kind of cool. You can control the filter real time on this. I think I mentioned that, didn't I? It's just kind of steppy in places. And they kind of compensate for the lack of sound quality by adding a bunch of effects, which I was never that crazy about. It does pan, stereo's not bad. And then kind of like the hex layer, you can control these 6 different sound sources for the mono synth. Okay, so that's one of the oscillators. Another one that sounds like it's synced. Sounds like some kind of sampled super saw, but it's not bad, you know? For me, the hardest thing to program on this was the Solo Synth. The way you have like individual filter settings for each of the voices, or each of the oscillators that feeds into the full mono sound. And then you have an overall filter setting too. And again, diving through the menus is kind of a pain in the butt. That being said, there is software that you can use to do that. And I played with it once or twice, but as I've already made the point several times, I didn't really need to get into it too much. I was mostly using it for organ and piano, and then I had a Dave Smith Tetra sitting here for, I don't know, about half the year that I played, just so if I wanted some better sounding filter sweepable mono synths that again sounded better, bass, or even 4-note polyphony on a good pad. The filter on the Dave Smith Tetra runs massive circles around this thing, but the Tetra had its niche that it's filling, and this has its niche that it's filling. All in all, again, I'm kind of sad to be selling it, because I really wish, it's kind of like, you live next to a mountain and you never climb it. And this is climbable. It's not, it's not impossible at all. I just didn't really have a need to at the time. And then you get other gear that you're diving in and trying to figure it out instead. And it gets pushed kind of to the back. So that's why I'm selling it. So that's it. Casio XW-P1. Thank you, Casio. It's a shame you guys couldn't have, again, doubled the capability on this and sold something for $1,000 instead of just $499, which was a great price for this. Keyboard is okay. It's nothing great, nothing horrible. It is velocity sensitive, no aftertouch, which would be shocking if it had it, because it seems like most synths now that are even less than $1,500 don't have aftertouch. What the hell? And hopefully, if you're out there and you're on the fence, you want your first synth and you play keyboards and you like playing them a bit, hopefully I've piqued your curiosity and you'd be willing to give this a consideration that you wouldn't have otherwise. And that was my intention. Okay? Cheers.
Left to learn, not much time to burn. The magic is a world inside. You'll never touch it if you never try. The magic is a world inside. You'll never touch it if you never try.